I did want to thank the China Center for International Economic Exchanges and the Asia Society for hosting us and for inviting me to speak. The fact that I live in the neighborhood made it somewhat easier to accept. If it was downtown, I'm not sure I would have. But seriously, in this group, I thought I'd give my remarks in both English and Mandarin. But I'm not sure that everybody in the room is as fluent in both of those languages as I am, so I'll just stick to English so that our Chinese friends can practice their English just as I keep practicing my Spanish. And at the outset, let me also acknowledge two distinguished guests, one of whom I just heard him speak. Mr. Ambassador Cui is an old friend of mine. We've been friends for a long time, socially as well as in business. And CH, who I have known through Henry Kissinger for 10 or 15 years now. And I have enormous respect for both of these guys. And I sometimes pinch myself to say, I know famous people like both of them. I didn't grow up in a world where I knew famous people, so thank you for being my friends. In any event, I think a great example of how the U.S. and China can work together towards common goals is a meeting like this, and that's never been more important. China is America's largest trading partner, and we are the largest trading partner for China. Our economies are more interconnected today than ever before, and we both have a stake in each other's success. Cooperation between our two countries is critical to meeting all the big challenges from around the world, and climate change to trade and finance are all things that we care about. And as the ambassador said in his speech, there will be competition. That's just natural, and competition's healthy. Competition gets the best products at the best prices for consumers, and if done right, can also create the jobs that people all around the world need. And I think the more we work together today and the more ideas that we share, the faster progress will arrive. Now, growth in China, it helps to fuel growth here in the United States, and that is why it has been very encouraging to see the important steps that China has taken to open up its markets to global investors. It's never open enough. We always want to work for more, but that's what two countries sitting down across a table should be negotiating rather than just yelling and screaming at each other. And I think we've got to make sure that we don't forget that life is not, and diplomacy is not a zero-sum game. We both are dependent on each other, and it's the same thing with climate change. If somebody in this world, any place in this world, reduces pollution, everybody in the world benefits, and if somebody does not, everybody suffers. And once again, it's not we versus us. You should know that Bloomberg is strongly committed to helping investors in both countries seize new opportunities presented by financial reform in China. In April, our company hosted the first high-level U.S. China business forum after President Trump and President Xi met in Florida. I think it was a productive forum that helped to forge new partnerships. And over the last year, I've also been chairing a working group to help make it possible to trade and clear Chinese currency in the United States. Our group includes leaders from both countries, and since we started working, we've seen a lot of progress, and let me just give you a few examples. Last year, the Bank of China, New York's branch, was named by the People's Bank of China as the first RMB clearing bank in the United States, and the first American certificate of deposit in Chinese currency was also issued, as well as the first U.S.-based license to trade Chinese stocks and bonds. For those of you that are not familiar with financial matters, these are important steps which take away a lot of the friction to do business, and the more business we do back and forth, the more the citizens of both countries benefit. China took an important step by allowing foreign banks and foreign investors direct access to its interbank bond market, the third largest in the world, and Bloomberg is working to build on this progress. And in March, we became the first financial data provider to include Chinese bonds in global fixed income indices. If you have data and you have the ability to transmit it and to share it and to use it in your decision making, you get a lot better results. We also launched the RMB Bond Suite, which is a set of tools to help investors access the Chinese bond market. And we are lending our full support to China's Bond Connection program, which offers a way for institutional investors to access China interbank bond markets. These steps will strengthen trade and business partnerships between our two countries and create jobs in both, and they will help make American companies more competitive by reducing the costs of doing business. They'll also help fuel new investment in infrastructure in both our countries, which really is very important. History has shown that investing in infrastructure is one of the best ways to spur economic growth, and China is putting that lesson to very good use. China's very ambitious One Belt, One Road initiative calls for major investment in new infrastructure throughout the region. Just to put that in perspective, One Belt, One Road covers an area that includes about 50% of the world's GDP and about the same share of the world's trade. And that opens up great new opportunities for global investors, and to shine a spotlight on those opportunities, our company has hosted a series of events around the world called China Navigating the New Silk Road. And already this year, we've held these events in Geneva, in Hong Kong, Frankfurt, and we'll host another tomorrow in London with remarks by the Chinese ambassador to the UK, and we'll continue the tour for many more countries in the months to come. More collaboration between the United States and China is also critical to fighting climate change, which poses serious risks to both our countries, as Kevin mentioned. As you know, a few weeks ago, President Trump announced his decision to withdraw the United States from the Paris Climate Agreement. Now, I'm not here to criticize that decision. As Kevin pointed out, the president, when he was campaigning, said that's what he would do. He was elected by a majority of the electoral votes and almost a majority of the public votes, and he has done exactly what he said. I'm here not as a critic, but I'm here to tell the world, and I think it's important that the world knows that the United States people is still committed to lead the way in fighting climate change no matter what happens in Washington. Over the last decade, the United States has reduced its emissions more than any other nation, and Washington has had very little, if not zero, to do with that. The bottom line is the United States is already halfway towards its COP21 goals for 2025, and the progress that we've been making has been accelerating, not declining. And the federal government has had virtually nothing to do that, state governments very little. It's all been done by local governments, but mainly by corporations and individuals who've been changing what they do so that they use less energy and generate less pollutants into the air. And I think it's fair to say you can see the two biggest countries in the world, China and India, also for the first time really focusing on climate change. We all see stories on television showing the pollution in the big cities in Asia where you can't really see across the streets. That is just not tolerable. The citizens of those countries will not be able to live there. Their children are getting hurt, and the governments respond. And I think the Chinese government and the Indian government will be the two leaders going forward here in trying to reduce carbon emissions. And certainly the United States is going to meet its goals because the people and the companies that have been working on it will continue to do what they've been doing. Businesses and cities and citizens all care about the air they breathe, the water they drink, and they're going to do something about it. I have a cartoon at home of two cavemen sitting in front of a fire in their lion cloths, and one says to the other, "I don't get it. All our food is organic. Our water is pure, our air is clean, we get plenty of exercise, and we die at age 25. Nevertheless, I think if you have those things today, you will live a lot longer, and we want to make sure that everybody does. By following the president's announcement a week or so ago, each of these groups that I talked about, the public and the private world and local governments, have announced that they are committed to meeting America's Paris Agreement goals. Bloomberg Philanthropies has been organizing them into a giant coalition, which we called America's Pledge, and we will lead an effort to measure the commitments of everyone in the pledge, and we'll also guarantee the funding that the UN Climate Change Secretariat could lose from Washington if Washington decides not to honor that commitment. I think they probably will, but if they don't, I just wanted to make sure that the Climate Change Secretariat did not worry about whether they were going to get paid at the end of the week, that they could continue to do their work, and they are doing that. China, you should know, has reaffirmed its commitment to the Paris Agreement because it rightly believes that doing so is in the country's best interest. China does deserve a lot of credit for the leadership, which sets a strong example for other countries. And I'm confident that by working together, our countries can reach and exceed the pledges that we've made. The more we work together across borders and create partnerships between businesses and governments, the stronger our future will be. And so I think today's a great chance to do that. And again, I wanted to thank the Asia Society and the China Center for International Economic Exchanges for bringing us together. Let me just repeat that these are two of the greatest countries in the world, the two superpowers. They just have to work together for both our mutual future, but also for the world's future. And I think with leaders like your chairman, CH, thank you for everything you do, and Mr. Ambassador, keep up the good work. The ambassador was at one point told me he was going back to China, but he's still here, and I'm going to call President Xi and tell him you have to stay here. We want you here. It's a good citizen. Anyways, thank you all.